Okay, cool. Cool, cool. We're gonna lower the volume a little bit so that we can hear ourselves think. Um, cool. So, hello. Hi. It's Sems. Um, so I took a weekend and I went down to Salem, Massachusetts, and it was so that we could attend the event called the Fiber Witch Festival. It's put on by Kitty with a Cupcake and Circle of Stitches Yarn Shop in Salem, Mass. And it looks like it started back in 2024. So over the weekend, we drove down, we explored Salem, we saw some of the shops and some of the people participating in the Witch Festival. And I thought that I would just kind of give a quick recap of what happened. So we left on Friday morning to head down to Salem. We left Maine at about 9:30, and we ended up arriving at the Salem Waterfront Hotel just before 1. So we were able to check in early. Check-in usually isn't until 3. And once we went inside, we got the room situated. We got a travel booklet from the front desk, and we went down to the internal restaurant at the hotel, Mainstays. And we had a light lunch. We figured out some places that we wanted to go. And the first thing we did was we went to the National Park Visitor Center at the Old Armory. So I have a rather substantial pin collection, and it has grown quite a bit after going to the National Park Visitor Center because they had a lot of pins available. There were a lot of pins this weekend. So I think we're closer to 950 than we were before we started this weekend. So while we were at the visitor center, we did see a few boat models. We saw a few dioramas. We saw some placards that provided information on historical aspects of the area. And one thing that I was a little bit disappointed by was I didn't check anything before this weekend. I had a list of stores and I had a list of events that I wanted to go to, and I said we'll make up the rest as we go. We'll figure things out while we're down there. So I didn't have my actual national park passport book. So the next time I go to the Fiber Witch Festival, I'm gonna have to bring that so that I can get it stamped at the Salem Museum, or the Salem Historic Park. So once we finished at the visitor center, we went around, we explored a bit around Essex Street. It's mostly cut off from traffic. There's an area that's very pedestrian heavy, and it has a lot of witchy stores. It has the old town hall. So we saw some of the stores, we picked up some incense, and we actually stopped by the Charter Street Cemetery, which is either the oldest or second oldest cemetery in the country, I believe. There was a memorial for the women that were hanged and killed during the witch trials. And it was very interesting. It was a little bit somber. There were people experiencing history in their own ways. Some people were, running back and forth between the monuments. Some people were, just kind of paying their respects silently. There were a couple people that were crying. And it was just one of those things. Sometimes you have to remind people that everyone experiences their feelings and everyone experiences history in their own way. And I don't think we can judge them for that. So once we did a lot of exploring around the Essex Street area, we ended up going down to Wharf Street, which is where Circle of Stitches is, and they are the host store, or one of the host stores, for the Fiber Witch Festival. We went in around 3 o'clock because they had an event at 6 to kick off the weekend, but I wanted to get in there early and look around at the store. I picked up a few stickers that now live in my scrapbook. And we went back to the hotel, had some nachos, had, a light dinner, and then we went back to Circle of Stitches at 6 for their sip and shop. So they had drinks, they had some food, they had some trunk shows, people had brought in some of their own merch, and it was pretty standing room only. We were there for about 10 to 15 minutes before we said, we need to get out of here. It's filling up pretty quickly. And of course we left and even more people went in. So I think next time I'd like to do that again the next time that I go. But I think I'll probably go later in the evening, and hopefully it'll be a little bit less packed. So we went back to the hotel room, we watched some TV, we relaxed, and then we got ready for Saturday. So Saturday morning, we went to the Salem Maritime National Historic Park. It's the end of April, so a lot of the exhibits, a lot of the buildings are still closed. They're not open yet this year. So it was mainly walking around, looking at some of the boats there. There was a small lighthouse that you could walk out to. So it was kind of just a nice little walk. So we went there around 9:30, and then we meandered our way back towards the old town hall in Salem.
My shit! Look what they've done to my shit! They've impounded me for not paying me parking fee!
And we ended up there around 12:15. So at the old town hall, that's where all of the vendors for the Fiber Witch Festival are. They're spread across 2 stories. And to enter, you line up outside the old town hall. We got there at 12. And for the first hour, 11 to 12, it's masks. You have to wear masks because of immunocompromised people that may need that extra protection, which is fine. I had masks in my bag just in case we got there too early. But we got there at 12:15. We thought the line was long until we went in and we came out and the line was like 6 times as long. So we hit it at a pretty good time. But it was kind of, I don't want to say packed. It wasn't quite packed, but it was a tight squeeze. So there were 2 floors of vendors. And before I came to the Fiber Witch Festival, I told myself I had a list of things I wanted. I wanted yarn for a May knitting project. I wanted a new project bag. And I wanted a specific embroidery kit that I saw the Fiber Witch Festival share on their Instagram. The first thing I saw when I entered the vendor hall was the embroidery kit. I have no idea how much that cost because I grabbed it immediately. I handed her cash and I said, I want this. Don't tell me how much it costs. Just take the money. And I had the embroidery kit, which will probably become a project that we'll do in either July or August. And hopefully it'll be part of a bigger project, but we'll get there eventually. So after that, we managed to kind of squeeze our way through the other vendors. I found Home Row Handcraft, I believe it is, and they had a gorgeous project bag, and I loved it, but I said I want to look around more before I decide to get it. So we looked around a little bit more. I found all of the yarn that I needed for the Tolkien related shawl that we'll be knitting in May. And I bought all that yarn immediately. And then we got to the merch table. At the merch table, we grabbed some more stickers from the event so I could put them in my scrapbook and such. And then we went back to Home Row Handcraft and picked up the project bag. Then we went upstairs, and upstairs was packed. It was a tight squeeze upstairs. I did fall victim to a gorgeous presentation by Dragon Horde Yarn. They had clear shell-shaped bags with glitter inside, and they had 100-gram yank of yarn, 2 minis, compact scissors, a measuring tape, a necklace, just gorgeous stuff, and I bought that immediately. I have no idea what I'm going to use it for, but it's mine. I felt it in my soul. I was talking to the woman there that was selling them, and she had this gorgeous dress on that she hand crocheted, And as she was telling someone, she spent 4 weeks knitting this dress and she got 8 inches done. So she ripped out those 8 inches and she redid the entire thing in crochet in 2 days. And it's like, yeah, that's, yep, I feel that. That's, oh man, there's a reason I crochet and I don't knit. And there's a reason I need to knit more, which is why we're doing a lot of knitting this year. So once we bought everything, we tossed it into a really large bag that I got from somewhere. And we managed to wander our way back to the hotel. We dropped off all our stuff, took a quick break, and then we went out for a lunch/dinner at Longboards Bar, which was right next to the hotel. Delicious food. We got to chat a little while. They had good drinks. And then after that, we went to Popped, which was on the other side of the yarn store, which was directly next door. And we picked up a bunch of popcorn. Because if I'm in a city that has a popcorn store, I'm going to buy popcorn. I love popcorn. There was also a jelly bean walls that had like 40 variants of jelly beans. So we stocked up on jelly beans. And then we went to Jaho Coffee and Tea as kind of a end of the day treat. And it was so good. They had iced lattes, and one was called the Space Jam, and it was chocolate, white chocolate, and raspberry. Amazing. I'm so lucky they don't exist in me, because I wouldn't have money. I would be there every single day. I would be obsessed with them. Like, no exception. So we went back to the hotel. We relaxed. We went to bed. Sunday, we checked out around 8:30, and we went next door to Circle of Stitches again. That Saturday was local yarn store day, and I didn't go to Circle of Stitches that day, but I did go Sunday morning, and I picked up a kit for a shawl. I think it's a shawl. It comes in a cute little bag. It has a few pretty stickers, and then it has a 100-gram hank of yarn and 3 minis. So I'm very eager to work on that at some point this year. And then I picked up some knitting needles for my knitting project, which is currently a bag for the main fiber frolic. So the reason we were checked out as early as we were is because we were going to go on the trolley ride that the Fiber Witch Festival had reserved. So they had 2 trolleys show up, and we filled the trolleys, and we were encouraged to bring our projects and knit and crochet on the trolley. I had my project bag with me, but I also had my camera with me, and I was a little bit more interested in taking footage and filming. So I filmed pretty much all of the ride. It was really fun. It was a little bit cold because we were way in the back, which wasn't covered, but honestly, it was fine. We saw a lot of historic places. We saw like the oldest hangar in the area. That might potentially be the oldest hangar in the country. There were a lot of raccoons living in it. We saw some beaches. We heard stories about the naming conventions of the beaches. We saw some of the real estate. And then once we returned back to the old town hall, we marched ourselves back to Jaho Coffee and Tea, and we got we got drinks for the ride home. I did not get the Space Jam this time. I got the Kulfi, which was rose, pistachio, and something else that I can't remember. But we grabbed that for the ride home. It took us about 2.5, 3 hours to get home. We stopped at the New Hampshire liquor store, of course. If you're driving through New Hampshire, it's right off the interstate. Why not? Or it's right on the interstate. You go there. That's what you do. It's what we always do. So I did bring a couple things specifically for the event. I brought a poncho and a vest, both handmade by me. I did not wear them. There were a few reasons. Partly it was the weather. They're really meant to be worn with just a shirt, and I had to wear a sweatshirt for the weekend, so it would have been a little bit too bulky to wear them. That's a hint of social anxiety as well, which, you know, If I wore them, cool. If I didn't wear them, also cool. I'm glad that I had them. I'd rather bring them with me and not wear them than leave them at home and be like, man, I wish I had brought those with me. So it is what it is. I also knit a bag about a month before the event, and that's what I brought to the old town hall to put all of my goods in. I should have brought or made a different bag that had a longer shoulder strap because it was just a hand strap and it was really not enough. So that was a little bit disappointing to carry around. Definitely going to change. I have a new bag in mind for one of my next events, and I'm definitely going to use a longer shoulder strap. And then for downtime, I had my iPad and my keyboard for my iPad, and those saved me. Just being able to sit down and write or sit down and research or just look around at things instead of having to go on my phone, like that was huge. It was, it was nice to have the TV on in the background in the hotel room, but I think it really helped just being able to sit down and set up like a little office space and just do some work there. One thing that I hadn't really thought about this before I went, but I found out while I was there. I'm not good at Instagram. I've had it for years and I'm still just figuring it out. And I've played with stories on and off through the years. Stories were huge this weekend. I followed Circle of Stitches. I followed Kitty with a Cupcake. I followed Fiber Witch Festival. I followed a few YouTubers. I followed a few shops. They shared so much information on their Instagram stories that I never would have gotten that information otherwise. They shared news on upcoming events, updates as to where things are, where they were doing social meetups, what time things started, fun facts about, I don't know, when a good time to enter the vendor hall would be. It's not something that I thought would be useful, but it's something that became really, really useful for me because I would be able to check my phone and be like, okay, well, this is happening at this time, or they're recommending we go here at this time because it'll be a little bit calmer, things like that. So it also presented the opportunity to meet people if I wanted to. I didn't take up the opportunity because I was there with people and, social anxiety. But the opportunity was there if I wanted to take it, and I was actually aware of the opportunity, which was huge. So the next time that I go, I do want to participate a little bit more in their scheduled events. I do want to try to socialize a bit more with people that I don't know and meet new people and bond with more people. And I think that's just one of the big changes that I wouldn't really know that I wanted unless I attended it once, which is what a lot of my events are, is I go the first time and it's like, oh, now I know what I want out of this event. And that's now what I know I want out of the event. There was also a note. We went to the vendor hall early, like I said. We were there at 12:15, which is about an hour after it opened. And they did suggest in their Instagram stories to maybe go around 3 o'clock if you're looking for it to be a little less populated. I'm not sure how accurate that was because their first year was 2024. And they said that on their Instagram a couple days before the event started. It's 2026. So I'm not sure how many more people there are this year compared to the last 2 years because they're obviously established now. It is an established event. They're still, it's still their first few years, but the news is out. People know they exist now. So I'm not sure quite how many people are attending at those later times. And 3 o'clock is also when admission is free. So they're also the people that may want to get in for free. I'm still figuring out how I want to make things. I'm still figuring out my format. I'm still figuring out my comfort zone. I'm still figuring out my editing style. But basically, I want to provide a resource for people to reference. So you might be someone that crochets or knits in your area, and this might be news to you that they have festivals based around yarn. Like, I didn't realize that until I was about, I don't know, 20? I was like, there's a festival for yarn? Sign me up, let's go. You might not be aware that there are very local events. This I traveled 2.5 hours to get to, but there's one like down the street, I say, as if down the street is 40 minutes. Like, there are so many in my home state of Maine. I know of like 4 or 5 in Massachusetts. I know of fairs in New Hampshire, Massachusetts. They're out there. You can, if you have a hobby, you can find, and I'm not going to say it for every hobby, but there's a high chance that if you look around, there are going to be like-minded people that want to celebrate that hobby because they're so passionate about it and they want to share that passion with others. It's always worth looking. And if you're comfortable, it's always worth, just checking it out. So I want people to know that there are opportunities out there that they can look into. This event was a little bit less structured than most of the things I go to. There were a few demos or events every day. They had the vendor hall, but it was very open-ended for this one, which I kind of expected, but I didn't really understand until I was there. Once I was there, I realized, oh, so we're just kind of set loose in Salem, and we're just going to check in every so often with the head witches at the events or at the vendor hall, which is not a bad thing. I really like going to places on fairgrounds because, everything is there. You go from booth to booth and you go from demo to demo and everything is in one place. Like, I've been to PAX East, I've been to the Equina Fair, I've been to the Maine Fiber Frolic, I've been to Cumberland, and they're all very structured and enclosed. The Fiber Witch Festival feels very much like a make your own adventure game. You're just kind of released into an area and, you can kind of touch base with the event, but you're very free to just explore the city, which is very historic and very touristy and very cool. So I did like that kind of change into a more open world adventure. So I had a lot of fun, and I do appreciate if you've hung out with me for this long in the video. Oh my god, we've just hit 26 minutes. We're gonna cut that down a little bit, but I do appreciate you hanging out for the video. There is going to be there is going to be a video of the actual trip if you like watching travel. We're going to have an entire video of just travel and just sped up clips to music, and then of course we have our entire recap. So I like to think that I have options for people that want to learn more about the event, or people that want to interact with the event somehow, in whichever format they prefer. You can listen to a 26-minute recap of me talking about my weekend, or you can just watch driving, or you can watch me taking weird video. You can experience my enthusiasm and passion in whatever way you prefer. So again, I do want to thank you for sticking around. I am going to go edit this now, and we're going to try not to have this be over 30 minutes, but I can't make any promises. So wherever you are, have a good evening, a good morning, a good afternoon. And my cat is coming, and last time she came, she turned off the audio recording, and this is my 3rd time recording this, so we're not going to let her do that again. Goodbye.